He stared at the ceiling, motionless. Another morning, another weight on his chest. At 24, Armaan had everything they said he should want: a stable job, a degree, even a partner who loved him. But deep inside, he was lost, tired, disconnected. One day, scrolling endlessly through videos and reels, something stopped him. A quote: "Choosing yourself is never selfish, it's necessary." He clicked, bought the book, Choosing Me by Kelly Wiekers. And that was the first time he looked in the mirror and truly asked, what if I'm not the problem? What if I've just never chosen myself? This book, Choosing Me, doesn't give you magic answers. It doesn't pretend to fix you. Instead, it holds up a mirror, a brutally honest one, and says, you matter, even when others don't see it, especially then. Kelly Wiekers begins by calling out a reality most of us live. We spend our lives pleasing people, living up to others' expectations, staying quiet, being nice, and losing ourselves along the way. Sound familiar? This book is a quiet revolution against that. She invites us to pause and ask, who are you when no one is watching? What do you really want? Who taught you to abandon your own needs? Kelly calls it radical self-connection. It's not about spa days or scented candles. It's about setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, recognizing your trauma, and most importantly, choosing your own voice over the noise. She says we've been conditioned from childhood to be liked instead of being real. But the cost of being liked is often your peace. And peace begins when you stop negotiating your worth. In the first chapters, Kelly walks us through what it really means to choose you, not in a selfish, arrogant way, but in a grounded, empowering way. It's about waking up and saying, I am not responsible for how others feel about my truth. She speaks about the masks we wear, the good girl, the helper, the always available friend. But who are we underneath all that? Kelly shares that choosing yourself often starts with discomfort, because the people who benefited from your silence will resist your voice. But that's the point. If your growth makes them uncomfortable, they were never your people. In one of the most powerful moments early in the book, Kelly says, you don't owe anyone the version of you they created in their mind. Pause on that. How many versions of yourself are you performing? Just to be accepted. Kelly doesn't preach, she reflects. And as you read or listen, it feels like she's talking to you, not to judge, but to remind you. You're allowed to be whole. You're allowed to be enough, without apology. This isn't just about saying no to others. It's about saying yes to yourself. And that is where the healing begins. Part 2. The cost of people pleasing. Armaan began to notice it everywhere. How many times he said yes when he meant no. How many times he smiled to avoid conflict. How many times he dimmed his light just so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Kelly Wiekers calls this out with painful precision. People-pleasing is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. She shares something profound. When you betray yourself to keep someone else happy, you are teaching your nervous system that your needs don't matter. Let that sink in. Every time you shrink, stay silent, or tolerate what drains you, you are teaching your brain that you don't count. And here's the truth. We learned it young. Many of us were taught that love had to be earned, that we had to be easy, agreeable, or low maintenance to be loved. But as Kelly writes, that wasn't love. That was conditioning. And it's time to unlearn it. She encourages us to check our inner dialogue, because so many of us carry around inherited beliefs that aren't even ours. Thoughts like, I don't want to be too much. If I speak up, they'll leave. I should be grateful, not complain. Kelly says, question them all. Where did those thoughts come from? Who benefits from you believing them? Because here's the thing. Choosing yourself requires reprogramming, not just habits, but identity. It's about stepping into discomfort, standing in front of a mirror and asking, what do I actually want? Not what your parents expected, not what your partner prefers, not what society rewards, but you. And it's not always a loud transformation. Sometimes choosing yourself looks like this: leaving a chat where you're not respected, saying no without explaining why, going to bed early instead of proving your productivity, not answering that text immediately, letting someone be disappointed in you and being okay with it. Kelly reminds us, discomfort is not danger. Not everyone will like the version of you that tells the truth. And that's okay. In one beautiful passage, she says, "When you choose peace over performance, you lose the audience but find yourself." That line stayed with Armaan, because for the first time he realized he wasn't broken, he was just buried. And each time he said no with love, each time he honored his need for space, each time he chose stillness over hustle, a piece of him returned. Choosing yourself, Kelly says, is a muscle. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become empowered. You practice, you falter, you learn. And then one day, you speak your truth, and the world doesn't collapse. That's the moment you realize you were always allowed to be this free. Part 3. Boundaries are love. The first time Armaan set a boundary, his hands were shaking. It was a simple message. "I won't be able to make it today. I need some time for myself." The reply? Cold, passive-aggressive, distant. But Armaan didn't chase, didn't apologize. And for the first time, he felt powerful. Kelly Wiekers devotes an entire section to this idea. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks, and you hold the key. She says most of us were never taught how to set them. We were taught to be liked, and liked people, we thought, don't disappoint others. But here's what Kelly wants us to know. Boundaries are love for yourself and others. They are the highest form of emotional responsibility. Because when you don't have boundaries, you don't have authenticity. You're saying yes with your mouth while screaming no in your heart. Kelly offers this powerful reframe. Every time you choose discomfort in setting a boundary, you choose comfort in your future self. Think about that. The short-term awkwardness of saying no saves you from long-term resentment. She gives examples of everyday boundaries. "I won't be available after 8 p.m. Please don't speak to me that way. I need time to process before I respond. That doesn't work for me." No justifications, no essays, no guilt. Because here's the truth. People who get upset about your boundaries were benefiting from your lack of them. And Kelly makes it clear, it's not your job to manage other people's feelings. You are responsible for your energy, not their reaction to your limits. This was revolutionary for Armaan. He always thought protecting people's feelings made him a good person. But in reality, it made him invisible. Kelly explains that boundaries also include your own thoughts. It's not just about saying no to others, it's about saying no to the inner critic that says, "You're being selfish. You're too much." They'll leave if you're honest. Kelly's advice? Speak to yourself the way you speak to someone you love, because no amount of external validation can replace the safety of your own voice. She writes, "You will never find peace trying to be digestible for people who are never hungry for you." That line hit Armaan like thunder. He had spent years editing himself for people who never truly saw him. Now he was learning to love the full version, even the messy parts, especially the messy parts. And that's what boundaries create, space for the real you to breathe. Part 4. Choosing stillness over chaos. One weekend, Armaan turned off his phone. No texts, no calls, no notifications, just him, a book, a quiet cup of coffee, and silence. At first, the silence was deafening. Then, it became beautiful. Kelly Wiekers talks deeply about the power of stillness. Not the fake kind where you're just scrolling quietly, but the real kind, the one where you sit with yourself and actually listen. She says, "We live in a world that worships noise. But healing whispers. It never shouts. We're addicted to movement, to doing, to fixing, because doing keeps us from feeling. And feeling, that's where the truth lives." Kelly challenges the lie we've been sold. That busyness is a badge of honor, that productivity equals worth, that if you're not constantly chasing something, you're falling behind. But what if stillness is not laziness? What if it's wisdom? She writes, "You don't have to hustle for healing. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is rest." For Armaan, this was a turning point. He realized he had been running on autopilot, filling every moment so he wouldn't have to feel empty. But emptiness, Kelly explains, is not the enemy, it's space. And space is where clarity walks in. She encourages creating emotional hygiene. Just like brushing your teeth, your soul needs daily check-ins. Moments of asking, how am I feeling today? What do I need? Am I moving from alignment or fear? This isn't indulgent, it's intelligent. Kelly teaches that when we ignore our inner world, we bleed into the outer world, in irritation, in short tempers, in overreactions. But when we choose stillness, we hear what's really going on. We notice what's been whispering. Slow down, you're safe now. In stillness, you learn to respond instead of react, to pause before pleasing, to feel before fixing, and most importantly, to meet yourself without judgment. Kelly writes, "Peace isn't found in a new place or person. It's found when you stop abandoning yourself." Armaan began to cherish his quiet moments, not as an escape from the world, but as a return to himself, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is nothing. Part 5. Self-love is a daily decision. Armaan used to think self-love was a destination, something he'd arrive at after he fixed everything: the anxiety, the career, the body, the bank account. But Kelly Wiekers shattered that illusion. She writes, "Self-love is not a final level of healing. It's a daily choice, even when you don't feel lovable." And that hit him hard, because truthfully, there were days Armaan didn't feel strong. Days he scrolled through social media and felt behind. Days he stood in front of the mirror and couldn't find anything to like. But Kelly says, you don't need to feel worthy to start treating yourself like you are. Because self-love isn't just bubble baths and mantras. It's the small, silent decisions no one sees. Going to bed instead of arguing back, choosing food that nourishes, not numbs, speaking up even when your voice shakes, letting go of what hurts, even if it's familiar. Kelly explains, we confuse self-love with feeling good. But sometimes, loving yourself means doing what's hard. It's canceling the plan you forced yourself to agree to. It's walking away from someone you care about but who drains you. It's saying no to the version of you that survived, so the version of you that thrives can finally take the wheel. She challenges the idea that you have to be confident to set standards. You don't. You just have to be tired of suffering. And when that moment comes, when you're more afraid of staying the same than of changing, that's when you start choosing yourself. Kelly reminds us, you don't become worthy. You realize you always were. Armaan started practicing tiny acts of self-love, writing down one thing he did well each day, checking in with himself before saying yes, allowing rest without guilt, and slowly, the inner critic got quieter, the inner friend got louder, because as Kelly says, self-love is not about perfection. It's about presence, showing up for yourself again and again, even on the days you fall short, even on the days you mess up, even when no one claps for you, especially then. Because that's when you need love the most, and if you don't give it to yourself, who will? Part 6. Healing is not linear. Armaan thought he was doing everything right. He journaled, he meditated, he read the books. And then, out of nowhere, he found himself crying in the shower, overwhelmed by a memory he thought he had already healed from. That's when Kelly Wiekers' words came back to him. Healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. You meet the same pain at deeper levels of wisdom. Most of us believe healing should feel like climbing a ladder, step by step, always upward. But in truth, healing often feels like circles. You revisit the same wounds, not because you failed, but because now you're ready to feel them more fully. Kelly says, sometimes growth looks like rest. Sometimes it looks like crying. Sometimes it looks like laughing in the middle of the mess. And that's okay. She reminds us that emotional progress isn't always visible. Just because you still get triggered doesn't mean you're back to square one. It means you're human. Armaan began to understand that healing wasn't about never hurting again. It was about changing how he responded to the hurt. He no longer drowned in shame. Instead, he whispered, "This too is part of the process." Kelly invites us to look at healing the way we look at physical recovery. If you twist your ankle, you don't get mad at it for being swollen. You give it care, time, patience. So why don't we do the same with our hearts? She writes, you can't rush what your nervous system is still learning to feel safe with. And in that statement is so much freedom. Because it tells you you're not behind, you're not broken, you're becoming. Kelly urges us to stop measuring healing by productivity. Instead, measure it by peace, by how quickly you return to yourself after you fall, by how gently you speak to yourself when you do. Armaan's spiral no longer felt like failure, it felt like a dance. Forward, backward, sideways. But always with more awareness, because when you embrace that healing is not linear, you give yourself permission to breathe. And in that breath, there is grace, there is softness, there is healing. Part 7. The Power of Boundaries. One evening, Armaan sat across from a friend he'd known for years, but this time, something felt off. Every time he spoke, the friend interrupted. Every time he opened up, the topic shifted. And when he finally shared how overwhelmed he'd been feeling, his friend shrugged it off with, "Yeah, we all go through stuff." Armaan went home feeling unseen, unheard, small. That night, he picked up Choosing Me and read a line that stopped him. "You are allowed to outgrow people who do not know how to hold space for your growth." Kelly Wiekers doesn't sugarcoat it. Sometimes choosing yourself means disappointing others. Sometimes it means saying no without guilt. Sometimes it means building boundaries with people you love. Because without boundaries, she writes, you are just a sponge soaking up other people's chaos. And it's not your job to shrink so others can stay comfortable. Kelly teaches that boundaries are not walls, they're doors with locks. You decide who gets access to your energy, your time, your vulnerability. She breaks it down simply. Boundaries are how you teach others to treat you. They're not selfish, they're self-respect. And if someone leaves because you set one, they were only there for what they could take. Armaan started small. He said no to plans he didn't feel aligned with. He stopped explaining himself for every little decision. He let silence fill the space where he used to over-explain. And guess what? Some people didn't like it, some pulled away, but some leaned in closer, the ones who were safe, the ones who respected his no as much as his yes. Kelly reminds us, you do not owe anyone access to you just because they're used to having it. And that sentence, it's power, because so many of us confuse kindness with compliance, love with sacrifice, connection with constant availability. But real love honors boundaries. Real relationships hold space for, I need some time. Real connection doesn't punish you for choosing yourself. Armaan didn't lose relationships. He just made space for real ones. And in that space, he found peace. Because when you protect your energy, you protect your joy, your clarity, your life. Part 8. Letting go of what you thought you needed. It had been a long day. Armaan scrolled through old photos on his phone, memories of a past relationship he thought he was over. Laughter, vacations, shared dreams. And yet that relationship had left him feeling small, unseen, exhausted. So why did part of him still miss it? He opened Kelly Wiekers' book and read, "We don't always miss the person. Sometimes we miss who we were trying to be for them." That truth hit him like a wave. Kelly explains that letting go is not always about moving on from a person. It's about releasing the fantasy, the illusion of what could have been, the version of ourselves we created just to feel loved. You thought you needed them, she writes, but what you really needed was connection, validation, and safety. And you tried to find it in the wrong place. And it's okay, because we all do it. We all chase what feels familiar, even when it hurts. We mistake crumbs for love because we've never tasted the real thing. But healing begins when you stop blaming yourself for wanting love and start questioning why you kept accepting less. Armaan realized that every time he looked back, he wasn't longing for her. He was longing for the version of him that didn't know better yet. But now he did. Kelly says, when you let go of what wasn't meant for you, you create space for what is. It's not about bitterness, it's about clarity, about seeing things and people as they are, not as you hoped they'd be. And once you see clearly, you stop begging, you stop chasing, you stop settling. Armaan didn't erase the memories. He didn't hate the past. He simply chose to bless it and walk forward. Because letting go isn't just an ending, it's a beginning. It's where you stop proving your worth to the wrong people and start living like you already are enough. Part 9. The quiet confidence of self-trust. The room was silent. No phone buzzing, no one texting, just Armaan and a decision he didn't know how to make. In the past, he'd rush to ask friends, scroll through advice threads, flip a coin if needed. But this time, something felt different. He closed his eyes and asked himself, what do I really want? And then came the calm. Not a booming answer, just a soft knowing. Kelly Wiekers calls this self-trust. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's the quiet confidence that you will figure it out, even if you don't have all the answers yet. So many of us are addicted to certainty, to guarantees, to having someone else say, yes, you're right. But Kelly teaches that confidence doesn't come from always being right. It comes from knowing that even if you're wrong, you'll handle it. You can trust yourself to course correct, she writes. You can trust yourself to make decisions and live with them. And that changes everything. Because when you trust yourself, you stop outsourcing your power. You stop living for everyone else's opinions. You stop doubting every step you take. Armaan learned that self-trust is built, not found. Every time he honored a boundary, every time he said no to something that didn't feel aligned, every time he sat with discomfort instead of avoiding it, he was teaching his nervous system, I've got you. Kelly is clear. When you choose you over and over again, the world learns how to treat you. But more importantly, you learn how to treat you. That's where the real shift happens. Not in applause, not in validation, but in the stillness where you hear your own voice clearly and believe it. Because self-trust is the foundation. It's what holds you steady when things fall apart. It's what carries you forward when no one else understands. And once you build it, you don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. You just live. Rooted. Part 10. Choosing you over and over again. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Armaan sat by the window with a cup of coffee and the final pages of Choosing Me resting in his lap. Sunlight streamed in, and for the first time in a long time, he felt light, not because everything was perfect, but because he was no longer pretending to be. Kelly Wiekers ends the book not with a grand finale, but with a gentle truth. Healing isn't a one-time thing. Choosing yourself isn't a single moment. It's a daily decision, sometimes every hour. That hit Armaan deeply. He thought healing would look like a breakthrough, a sunrise, an applause-worthy transformation. But what Kelly shows us is that healing often looks like this: waking up and deciding not to chase anyone today, sitting with uncomfortable emotions without trying to numb them, saying no without apologizing, letting go of who you were expected to be, and finally resting in who you are. You are not selfish for choosing yourself, she reminds us. You are whole, even in your mess. You are worthy, even in your stillness. This is not a book that tells you to hustle harder, love more, give endlessly. It's a mirror, inviting you to meet yourself without judgment. Armaan closed the book with a quiet smile, because now he understood healing isn't a destination, self-love isn't an achievement, and choosing yourself isn't a battle, it's a practice. A practice of showing up for your own needs, of holding your inner child gently, of rewriting old beliefs that once told you you weren't enough. Kelly doesn't promise a perfect life, but she offers something more powerful. A relationship with yourself so solid that no chaos, no rejection, no external storm can take it away. And in that truth, Armaan finally felt free. Free to be, free to feel, free to choose himself again and again and again. As Armaan walks forward, he carries with him the quiet strength of choosing himself again and again. Kelly Wiekers' message is clear. Healing is a practice, not a destination. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's the key to living authentically, confidently, and at peace. So, as you move through your own journey, remember this. You are worthy of the love and respect you so freely give to others. You are enough, just as you are. And when life gets overwhelming, when you're unsure of your next step, always choose you. Because choosing yourself isn't just an act of self-care. It's an act of love.